How important is franchise? Is it a decent business model, or are we just throwing money away? If you try and save money on a retail establishment by not having it in the fancy shopping mall and having it a little further away from the town centre, you end up having to spend more money on marketing to make up for the fact that you do not have so much footfall going past the premises, and you actually have to advertise more to let people know where you are and hope the need and the demand for your products and services are somewhat enough to make them go out of their way to find your cheaper premises. It is such a bad way of doing business. I would only recommend you going for the cheaper property if you can't afford the more expensive one. And that's pretty much the same with the franchise. When you buy into the franchise business model, a reasonable percentage of what you're paying for is the branding, is the marketing that comes with it. So if you were to buy a franchise in McDonald's, for example, everybody already knows the brand. You're buying into that brand. You're buying into that public awareness without having to spend so much money and time building up that brand, and people will pay a premium for that product. About 20 years ago, over 20 years ago, because it was just after the millennium, the dawn of the new millennium, so that's 22 years ago, I was living in Cheltenham. Okay, I'll tell you what I did. So we rented this apartment, which was above a shop, which didn't look like an apartment. And when I saw it, it made me smile because I thought, wow, maybe this is so cheap because nobody wants it because it looks more like an office or storage for the shop than an apartment. And that's when it dawned on me, ka-ching, I'm going to use this to sort out and start my web development firm. I did a project for a company called Uzbekistan. It was a nice website. They paid me £10,000, which at the time would have been close to $15,000, and I used that to knock the fake walls down, which was all plasterboard and 2x4, and we redesigned it so that when the main door opened, you came in, it was a big area where I had furniture I bought secondhand from an auction from the old Eagle Star building. I built the computers myself, and we even had these little badges made with compliments of Hamman Split to put on the front, and they looked absolutely stunning, and I sold quite a few of them. Quite a few of our customers said, oh, where did you get those from? I said, oh, we built them. And so we built them for quite a few customers. We made quite a bit of money on those, yeah. I did a deal with this guy. He wanted a particular website which was to market his flooring company. And I said to him, actually, do you know what? I would really like one of the floors you've got. I'm quite prepared to do it just for the floor, because I knew the floor was actually going to cost me more than I wanted to charge for his website. So we did a straight swap. We then started to assemble the desking, and I put in there 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 6 computers, and it really looked the part. I actually ended up being headhunted from my own company to be a technical director, but that's another story. Whilst we were installing all of this stuff, I ordered a pizza. That's right. And this guy came from Domino Pizzas, and he delivered the pizza, and he said, oh, what are you guys doing? And I explained to him, I said, oh, I'm getting my offices ready. We have a web development firm. And I explained to him that it's just us here, but for larger projects, we actually have programmers in India. This was at the moment, the exact moment almost, give or take 6 months, where all of the banks had basically done away with using Indian call centers where nobody could understand anyone, and were bringing them back home. They were actually advertising on TV, we have English call centers, which was not true. They just outsourced it to Scotland. I think that was quite clever, because have you ever tried to stay angry to a female Scottish accent? You're like, why is my card not working? Oh, don't worry, my dear. It's like speaking to Mrs. Doubtfire. I think it would have a calming effect on most of the English angry customers. We have some coders in India, some coders in the UK, and we use photographers for photography, designers for designing, programmers for programming, and we were not really into that full stacker, jack of all trades, one person does all, because you end up with a substandard quality work. And some of the prices we were charging back then, you could not get away with substandard work. Now, he explained to me that, he said, actually, I'm not just a delivery driver, I am one of the partners. And this is what we do. We find businesses to invest in. And if you've just started, we could be pretty interested in investing in your business. Now, at the time, I was going through what we call proof of concept. This means that you've got a bloody good business idea. You know what you want to do. You know you can do it, but you're not quite sure how it's going to pan out. So you want to test the market. So I was literally starting everything on a shoestring budget. As I say, I got the office sorted out by the money I'd made from Vosper Mantec and doing some wheeling and dealing to get the floor and everything done. So it was just a case of putting it together. And before I was able to get it to where I wanted, as I say, I was headhunted, and I actually explained to them, look, unless you're prepared to pay me X amount, which would be the equivalent to what I expect to earn per month, I'm not interested. And they turned around and said, yeah, okay, no problem, we'll do it. I was like, shit. So I had to do that particular project. And I had a chat with, funnily enough, do you remember I said those badges with compliments of Hanman Split? Well, I was speaking to one of the founders, Phil Hanman, and I was explaining to him about this weird encounter I had with a guy who looked like a delivery man. He was delivering my pizza, and all of a sudden he was trying to offer me quite a large amount of money to invest in my business. Now, I didn't take that money for two reasons. Number one, I was going through a stage of proof of concept, so I wasn't even sure if I was ready to invest a good amount of my own money, yet alone someone else's. The other reason was, if I was able to grow this business without actually having to borrow money, then I get to keep 100%. Why the hell would I want to give someone a percentage of my business if I didn't need it? Unless it would allow me to grow my business that much faster, and then the exit strategy for them would be me buying those shares back at a premium. So I really needed to get my shit together and sort out this proof of concept so I could actually work out what is it I wanted to do, how much is it going to cost, and is it going to save me money or make me money? This is what I needed to work out. I'm having a chat with Phil, and I said, oh yeah, and he said, it's not the so-and-so brothers, is it? I know all about them. The older brother, he used to work for a major merchant bank. The ability to give business loans is based on a point system. And if you don't get enough points, it might be to do with the credit rating of the customer, it might be to do with the number of years experience, but there are going to be reasons why they couldn't get the money and they would have to turn it down. And sometimes it was due to a couple of points and a really stupid reason. And so he did a deal with his brother who was not working at the bank. He said, look, we've got some customers who've got some really good business ideas here, and the people are really clever, and I think they could have made a really good go of these businesses. But unfortunately, with the way things are with the HSBC, we cannot lend them the money. But with someone in your shoes, little brother, we'd be able to sort something out. I'll tell you what to say. I'll give you what you need. You need to borrow the money, and then we will take that money and we will lend it to the customer. Well, apparently, and I didn't know that then, and I only know this because they told me, that's illegal. To borrow money on behalf of someone else is illegal. To borrow money and then lend it to someone else apparently is illegal if someone involved is working in the bank. And the older brother ended up going to prison. Well, when he came out, they obviously wanted to continue business. And now being able to invest in these people was no longer an option. So the only thing they could get into that would be remotely similar was franchise, where there's a proven business model, where there is proof of concept, where there is a manual on how to run the business. So they could buy into the franchise, find someone to manage it, put them on the training course, and literally have a very similar environment to what they had been previously doing illegally. When I met the guy, that was their third Domino Pizzas, and they were making really good money. Now, a few years later, they sold those pizza shops, and they decided, you know what, we're ready to start our own business. And, the main brother, the big brother, he was a bank manager, so he understood how to go through a business plan to work out whether a business would be good or not. He understood how to follow instructions and how to make things work. And so the franchise business model for them worked really, really well. But here's the weird thing. You would have thought that the experience that they'd acquired over the years by going on these training programs, by going through the operations manual, by fulfilling all of the marketing objectives and KPIs, that they should be pretty much on their way to being able to create their own business. Well, it was an Indian family. They decided they wanted to set up an Indian restaurant. They had enough money. They just sold 3 Domino pizzas after building them up from scratch for a small fortune. And they invested some of that money into this restaurant. They chose a particular location that had previously had a large footfall, but due to there being a huge change in our CBD area, Central Business District, because there had been a key change, that footfall was no longer there. And I think this was one of the main reasons why they thought they got a bargain, it was cheaper. But as I told you, if you have a retail premises off the beaten track, you have to spend more money on marketing, and they didn't do it. And when they did, they didn't have a proper logo, they didn't have a brand, they didn't understand branding. They knew how to follow a brand book, but they didn't understand the essence of it and how to create it by themselves. So their leaflets and their advertising didn't match. You couldn't really tell it was the same company. And they'd employed this chef and they'd brought him over from India, and they were not taking advantage of the lunchtime rush to pay for the bills. They were spending a lot of money on food that then wasn't being used, and eventually they had to close the business. This was them trying to establish something that they thought, well, it's in our blood, we should be able to do this easy. Lots of immigrants do it when they have no understanding of business, but they don't have the qualifications for a proper job. They managed to do it, so for us it must be easy. And they fell on their ass, and it was because they didn't have an actual plan to follow. So as you can see, if you're a person that is hardworking and can follow a plan, then the franchise business model could be for you. But if you've already been in a business for 10 years and you know the ins and outs, and you've actually been able to follow the way they do the marketing, the way they keep their customers happy, where they find their customers, what they need to do. If you've already been doing it for 10 years and all you have to do is replicate that, then go do that. It's going to be a lot more insightful than what you can learn on a training course, which will last you the best part of a month. So you really need to understand, if you're going into a new business that you like the look of but you know nothing about, buy a franchise. If you want to continue doing a business that you know everything about and you've been doing for someone else for 10 years, then set up the business on your own. Now, I've got my own business which I'm going to be regrowing, and it's very, very complicated because I'm actually wanting to completely revolutionize the way my business works. That will probably cause a paradigm shift in the entire industry. I've been waiting for someone else to do this for the last 10 years whilst I was traveling, with the expectation that when I start up again and run my business, by doing best practice, I will ultimately have to do this. And it's one of those things that I now, knowing what I know, cannot run my business the way I used to again, because I would feel like I'm shortchanging the customer. So if I'm going to do this properly, I'm going to have to do it. Although it's true that there is no company out there that's going to sell something for a tenner if they know they can get 20 bucks for it. It's also true that there's no customer out there who's prepared to pay 20 bucks if they know they can get exactly the same thing for a tenner. And that's what we're going to do. I'm going to be doing something with my business model that will allow me to create a finished product 10 times better than how we do things today. Now, you can look at it two ways. You can either say that I'm going to be making the same product 10 times cheaper, which I'm not interested in. That would literally cause a price war. Now, if you think about it, the average product for my type of company is 1,500 bucks. So if I was to start selling that at 150, I've now literally got to go out and find 10 times more customers just to make the same amount of money as a thank you to myself for making things better for my customer, and hope that it's so much better that those 10 times more customers come running, which probably will. Or I can be more clever and copy what McDonald's did in the 50s, and that is they just increased their portion size. If you look at the portion size from the 50s up until present day, it's been getting bigger and bigger and bigger, just like the waistline. Okay, so they've started doing salads to try and make up for it. But that's basically what they did, and that's what I want to do. So instead of providing a $1,500 product for $150, I would rather give them a $15,000 website for $1,500. And that's what I'm working on at the moment. But here's something that I learned the hard way. I do not want to put all of my eggs in one basket. I want to make sure that I've got another income coming from somewhere else and that I have the team behind me to run it. And that's why franchise is important for me. Next year, after about 12 months, I have to buy a house in Uzbekistan, and I've got to be able to spend a few years there. This is my promise to the other half. It's a long story. And I'm really, really interested in taking in some franchises with me. I've already spent the last 3 months going through quite a few franchise opportunities already, but I'm not quite there yet. I'm not ready to start making videos on them. But I at least wanted to give you some insight into the franchise business model, and I've just used it as an excuse really to test the lighting and see what this video is going to be like with the magic lantern. Well, I hope you found that of interest. Thank you for listening.